Hey everybody, as you know, or at least I would hope you know, there's been another attack today. Another church in Michigan has been attacked. Dude took a car, drove it into the building. I believe 2 are dead, 9 are injured after being shot. In the interview you're about to watch, me and my brother Mike Stibbs from the Fringe Society discuss how do I put it? What I believe is going on. What we're witnessing is a combination of people programmed online via radicalization, as well as Luciferian chosen ones being unleashed to attack specific targets. So, hopefully, if you haven't already watched this over on my brother Mike's channel, you'll get something out of this interview. Just be praying for our people. Keep your head on swivel.
Thank you very much for watching the True Fringe Society, or rather listening, depending on if you're watching this or listening to this through either YouTube or one of the podcast outlets. We do have both. So you can find us wherever podcasts are available, or if you want to see our faces, you could also go to YouTube. I'm here tonight with Jason Pillow. He's got some really interesting information he wants to share. So how you doing, Jason?
Well, as everybody knows, how could you not? Everybody saw what happened recently with Charlie Kirk.
Yes.
A good Christian man was taken away from us. And I know there's a lot of controversy out there, especially with the skeptics and the conspiracy theorists and everything else. And I addressed some of that in a video I did last week, but it's because they're not looking at the bigger picture. Do I think we will ever know who exactly pulled the trigger on Charlie? No, we won't. And it's designed to be that way. I personally believe that Charlie was offered up as a ritual sacrifice via the Luciferians with an intended goal and purpose. Now, for me to elaborate on that, you have to understand there are different types of programming for individuals. There's a type of programming that I was put through, the satanic ritual abuse, alternate personalities and things of that nature. But there's a far more insidious type of programming that our own personal government and other governments of the world have been involved in for a couple of decades now, which would be online programming.
Yeah, the IIA.
Social media contributes a lot to this.
Mm-hmm.
That's the reason why everyone's isolated within their own echo chamber. If you are on social media, then you are very well aware that everyone on your feed, unless you're on like X or something like that, is going to be someone within your wheelhouse. Whether it's conspiracy theorists, Christian conservatives, far leftists, it doesn't matter, because they're going to isolate you in your own pool. So it's the continuous promulgation of ideas and, in certain aspects, radicalization of individuals.
Yeah, which it never gets checked. I mean,
exactly.
If you're in a social chamber, if you're in an echo chamber, you're never going to be challenged. So every time that you're going out and having a crazy video, you just get reinforced on that, and it creates a false sense of reality.
Exactly. So personally, I think that this guy that they're saying shot Charlie, I think he's a fall guy, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
And my last video, it may not have sounded like that was my thought process, but that's only because I didn't express myself eloquently enough to drag that point across. I did bring up the programming and radicalization process, but I didn't go into extreme detail of just the shooter. My biggest thing was, if you got a 30-06 with a scope, a 200-yard shot is not difficult. Because it's really not. Especially if you are a sociopath or a psychopath, which a lot of these people have graduated to, then the emotional toll of taking a human life doesn't come into play. I don't care what Navy SEAL snipers have to say. I don't care what Marine snipers have to say. You're talking about men and women that were on the field of battle that operated in good faith.
Right.
They were there for a reason because they felt it was a calling to protect America. So, yeah, they had to deal with the emotional ramifications, especially the first time of taking a human life. For a sociopath or a psychopath, it's not even a second thought. Now, having said that, it doesn't mean that this guy was the one that pulled the trigger. And I say that because there's a big hole in the story here. You're talking about a guy in his 20s managing to get on a rooftop with a rifle that would take an expert like me a good 20 minutes to break down enough to hide in a backpack. And I would need a larger backpack than the one he was carrying, for starters, in order to conceal that weapon. He would have had to get up on the roof, assemble the weapon, wait for the opportune time, take the shot. Then he would have had to disassemble the weapon in order to put it back in his bag, to carry it down without being seen with the gun. Then he would have had to go to the wooded area, reassemble the gun, wrap it in a towel, and place it in a bush. Who would do that? It makes no logical sense. None whatsoever. And then if you go into the text message threads between him and his tranny boyfriend and all of that stuff, it's clearly scripted. It's like they took it out of Breaking Bad's last episode just to protect the boyfriend. It doesn't add up. It doesn't make logical sense. So do I think that there's possibly a second shooter? Yes. And I also believe that's the reason why they're not doing an autopsy or even willing to release autopsy reports. Because it would change the angle of the bullet trajectory and show that it didn't come from the corner of that building, even though that's the most logical place to shoot from. Right. Given Charlie's position and the spot that he was hit, the main building that they were saying this guy was staged at, if you look to the left of him, there's another building that would have given someone clear line of sight to take a shot like that. And I think that is the most likely position that a sniper round could have come from to actually hit Charlie Kirk. So, and then you also have the details of the private jet that left and flew off 20 minutes after Charlie was shot, that shut off its transponder while it was in flight. Why would you do that? I mean, that goes against regulations. The only reason you would do that is if you were trying to hide your flight pattern from observers. So that brings up the question, who did it and why? Was this a professional hit? Possibly. I think it was, and I think it's by design. The reason why I think that is because everyone's heard the expression ordo ab chaos, order out of chaos, but there's another expression that is very popular amongst military people and, security professionals like myself, and that is in the expression that in chaos there is opportunity.
Right.
In this particular instance, the opportunity comes from creating more destabilization in America. They want America to fall. That is their end game. America is the last piece to fall before they can obtain what they really desire as far as a world power under, the Luciferian order. And look at everything that's taken place since Charlie Kirk's death. God be with him and his family, But we have seen leftists shoot up the ABC buildings. We have seen bomb threats called into RFK Jr.'s personal home. We had a leftists run into a wedding screaming free Palestine and shot an innocent man in the middle of the wedding just before the bride and groom were going to dance together. And you have seen calls for the murder of Christians, calls for the murder of conservatives, and they have created the perfect environment for the covens to release chosen ones and give them the perfect cover as leftist extremists to go and hit targets that they've marked.
So what do you mean by the covens releasing chosen ones? Can you explain that to the listener / viewer?
Chosen one is someone like I used to be, someone that was satanic ritually abused, given alternate personalities, and programmed in order to carry out assassinations. Now, I know that me and my family have been targeted, as well as several of the people that we work with in ministry, and even some other people within, the public speaking tours and stuff from groups like Skywatch and others that are out there. I also know for a fact of a particular individual, and to prevent any sort of slander or anything like that coming, I won't mention them by name, but people that know me know exactly who I'm referring to, who has been infiltrating his way into these groups, for public speaking engagements and such, but on the backhand has been setting up a network of elder coven members across the nation in order to target specific individuals.
Crazy.
So we have chosen ones that are in the midst of the Christian congregation right now, and we have them outside as, to boot.
Right.
This is not theory. This is not conjecture. This is not a made-up fantasy. This is not a movie. This is real life. And truth is stranger than fiction. And the reason why I'm coming on tonight is because people need to be aware of what's happening. Because we are in a state in America right now that is very similar to pre-Civil War conditions initially. Because before the original Civil War kicked off, you had violent times where people would just kill each other, and it would be out of hatred, expressing different views, and things like that. That is the time we are in right now.
Yeah.
They want to push us into a full-blown civil war. And then they're going to capitalize on that in order to turn this into a dictatorship and lock it down.
Yeah, the state, I wouldn't say the state, but man, we are so divided right now because of our phones.
Yeah.
And it makes me sad, because I could tell you, man, I could go into a grocery store, I could talk to anybody. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you look like. And I could drum up a conversation with anybody and find common ground with them, face to face. And the anonymity that the phone gives you is that you're not dealing with other people, is that you're dealing with an ideology. And so you attack that ideology, and there's a person behind that ideology, and now you're divided over an idea rather than divided against an actual enemy that you're seeing every day face to face. You're just not having those conversations, right?
Exactly.
And somebody could tell me that they're for Obama or whatever, transvestite leftist that we've got going on for us. They could say, "Oh, I voted for them," and I do not care. My blood does not boil. Like, I could not care less. Live your life is what I'm saying. But the anonymity that the phone provides is this. It's almost like your car. in a way. Like when you're behind your car and you go and you flip somebody off, right? Like you get road rage and you flip somebody off. Like you don't know who's driving that car. That person's not your enemy. That person could be an old person or a mom with like three babies in the car, but then you're perceiving them as an enemy because they are coming across your path and slowing you down from where you want to go.
Yeah.
Right? Same thing with the phone, right? There's and it's creating these faceless enemies that people are just saying vicious and vile things about Charlie Kirk and how his wife should die and his kids should die too, because they hold a ideology that they call a virus, and that ideology is Christianity.
Yeah. Well, you have two views that are diametrically opposed. Those on the left adhere to Marxism, which anyone that has studied Marx knows he was a Satanist.
Right.
He said his entire purpose was to destroy capitalism and dethrone God.
Yeah.
How much more satanic can you get? You know? And then you have those of us that they like to claim are on the right, which most of the people that are considered on the right now aren't even truly on the right. And they're diametrically opposed.
Yeah.
Because we believe in Christianity. We believe in God's morals. We believe in God's law and doing things right and just. And these two are coming to a head.
Right.
Now, in this chaos provides an opportunity for the covens. I believe that here in the next few months, if God doesn't step in and start squashing this, that you're going to see this escalate even more. And there are going to be Christians, there's going to be pastors, there's going to be evangelists, there's going to be, heads of ministry and stuff that are going to be blatantly attacked or killed. And some of them might be because of a radicalized leftist, some of them. But there's also going to be some that are done by select individuals within the covens that are programmed to do this type of work. It's going to be chosen ones. What people look at stuff like this and they automatically, like a buddy of mine before told me when I was telling him about my past, he told me, he said, "You're like Jason Bourne." I told him, I said, "Don't insult me." I told him, I said, "This isn't a movie."
Right.
The world that I live in, the world that I exist in, Jason Bourne couldn't survive because he has no aspect or knowledge of the supernatural. So if you take CIA-based, spy game tradecraft and then amplify that by 100 times because of the supernatural tools and stuff they have to spy on individuals, to mark them for death, or to even commit attacks through, it's far worse than being in the spy game. And people need to grasp this concept and understand they really need to start questioning every new person that shows up into their life, because that's how the covens operate, is with subtlety. Most pastors and stuff don't understand, they've got this new person that just came into town, right? Little old lady, might be 60 years old, 65 even, right? And they strike up a friendship with the church leaders and the pastor and everything else, and they start hanging out, but they don't know that this woman works for the Luciferians. And her entire job and task is to get in close with these people and map out their lives, their habits, their patterns, their hobbies, what they enjoy, types of food they eat, because they're looking for any avenue of attack that'll be effective.
Crazy. So you said somebody who's actually infiltrating the church right now?
I do.
Okay, I'm not gonna. You don't obviously. We'll keep that name off the air. Do you have any influence over that person at all?
I used to think of them as a friend, but not anymore.
Yeah. You live in an area that's notorious for a lot of satanic action. Right?
I do.
So when you talk about this type of stuff, and because you've been close to it for most of your life, some people might have a hard time understanding, like when when you say covens, like, a connotation might come to them, like they think that there's, like four fat dudes that usually eat Cheetos down in their mother's basement playing Dungeons and Dragons are coming together. But it's not like that, is it?
Okay, the types of individuals that operate within these covens, most of the time, they're going to be connected with other secret societies, Skull and Bones, Freemasons, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The type of individuals that are going to be involved, you may have your average cafe worker or your average person here and there, but a lot of them you're going to be looking at judges, doctors, attorneys, law enforcement individuals, high-powered people that are in positions that can influence others.
Yeah.
Most of the time, the ones that people think about, the fat guys eating Cheetos, playing D&D, if they're involved in anything occult, it's going to be self-styled occultism, and they're, for the most part, really not even a threat, or at least to me, they're not. That's just kind of the way I was trained to view them.
Right.
Every now and then you get one that goes deep enough to acquire a significant type of power, but it's few and far between that occurs. And usually if that does happen, they're usually brought into the fold by another much larger coven. The people I'm referring to would belong to what Russ Dizdar used to refer to as the Brotherhood, which is a global Luciferian network. And you have everyone from tech moguls, CEOs, leaders of countries, politicians, and stuff that fall right in line with that. Now, to couple that, you also have another problem that we have to recognize here in America, and that would be, and this is going to upset a lot of Christians, but I promise you it's the truth, that's going to be Zionists. The Zionists were developed in the 1800s and really came to power during and around World War I, and have since promulgated that power. And it's all based on the lie of Zionism. Now, the lie of Zionism is that what we know as the modern nation of Israel should exist and has to exist, which, if you understand Scripture and actually have friendships with anyone that would be considered a traditional Jew, they'll even acknowledge that the modern state of Israel should not exist. And the reason why the modern state of Israel exists is because, in the view of the Zionists, which goes hand in hand with the Luciferians, look at Benjamin Netanyahu, and the current rabbis that are leading Israel, they are no different than the Pharisee, or those that the Lord sent Ezekiel to confront in the Old Testament. They all fall in line with the same thing. They are occultists. They believe in the Talmud. They also believe in the Zohar and occult mysticism based in Jewish tradition. Now, so what we're looking at here is a global Luciferian order that is now backing, the Zionist play, and there's going to be a lot of members in Zionism that are directly influenced or involved with these coven networks as well, and may very well be involved with the Brotherhood. So eventually what you're going to see come to fruition out of this on the political side of things, especially here in the U.S., look at Trump. How much has he actually done for the U.S.? How much has he done for Zionism?
Yeah.
And Israel?
A lot. And
look at their most recent plays of them talking about pushing hate speech laws and violating our First Amendment rights under the Constitution. Don't get caught up by his public persona of, we're going to go after these Democrats. Bullcrap.
Right. Trump is doing things that we were accusing Obama of doing. I remember it was like 2015, 16, and they're talking about Agenda 21, how Obama was going to take over cities and declare martial law. And wait a minute, what is Trump doing? He's doing those same things, but he gets a pass.
Yeah. How many cities have the National Guard rolled out in at this point? I know they're supposed to be staged in Memphis here at any time.
Yeah, really. And that's a little crazy. I'm not Oh, dude, I'm not super political, but I'm not super unpolitical either. But there's certain things like I'm like, how come I just asked the question. So how come Trump gets a pass on it in our community, but Obama didn't get a pass on it for the same exact type of things? And that's the
Only
thing.
because Obama was a leftist.
Yeah. But we have to, like, I mean, at all cost. And I think Charlie Kirk would agree. At all costs, we have to keep free speech free speech. We can't say
Oh yeah, you know
it.
what? Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, in a recent interview that Trump did, the reporter asked him. He said, "Why would you and Bondi push hate speech laws now, especially knowing that Charlie Kirk would have opposed you on this?" You know what Trump's reply was? He said, "Well, I'm willing to bet now that Charlie Kirk would very much change his opinion." You really think so?
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't. That was his whole thing is, that the power of speech and being able to sit down and have a conversation, that the eloquence of an argument, and the right, not the political right, but the moral right is going to win any argument over evil any day.
Yeah.
And we need to keep that. We need to preserve free speech because of that. Is
Well,
we're already going to win. We just need more people that are educated enough, that understand Christianity, understand the Bible enough to know that people that are not Christians, they're not our enemies. They are our potential flock. We're supposed to be going
well,
after them in love.
look at everything we've been fed over the last 22 years. No, it's been longer than that. 30 years almost. Ever since 9/11, right? Uh, the Muslims are the terrorists.
Right.
It's Muslims, 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 Muslims. What they don't mention is that Hamas and Al Qaeda and some of these Muslim extremist groups were being funded by Israel. Netanyahu has been known to give money to these terroristic groups like Hamas to have them stage attacks to give him the excuse to conquer territory.
Hmm.
How many churches and Christians has he killed in Gaza alone just in the last few months?
Wow.
How many churches were deliberately targeted? How many Christian settlements in Gaza and the surrounding areas were targeted, even within Israel's borders, by extreme Jewish groups that were sent in to burn down buildings, attack Christians, and with the expressed belief that they are right to drive Christians out of Israel?
Yeah. Well, they're not talking about
Who
that
is the
stuff.
true enemy?
They're not, Jason, they're not talking about that stuff on the news. So, I mean, I knew some of this was going on, but I mean, at what rate are they doing this? I mean, how many do we have, like, is there anybody keeping track of how many Christians were killing over there during this war?
Uh, Thousands, from what I'm understanding.
No.
I mean, not all the Palestinians are Muslim.
Right.
There's a lot of Christians that were in Palestine too that have
Okay.
been targeted and starved to death and had acts of genocide enacted on them as well as the Muslims.
Right.
And here's the thing, I mean, I have friends and affiliations with people of many different faiths. I have friends that are Muslim. I have friends that are Jewish and everything else. And what I can tell you is there's only two groups that I can tell you off the top of my head who expressly despise Christ. One is the Talmudic rabbis that you find in Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Two is a Satanist.
Satanist?
You may have extremist factions of Islam that refuse to recognize Christianity, but the moderate Islamists view Jesus as a prophet. They won't acknowledge him as the son of God, but they acknowledge him as a great teacher and a prophet. The Jews won't even do that.
Yeah.
According to the Jews in the Talmud, they believe that Jesus is rotting in hell in a pile of excrement.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
He's our savior, man. He overcame.
Yeah. Yeah.
How wrong are you guys?
Well, and it's one of those things, and this is where it got interesting for me, because you have all these conspiracy theorists saying that Kirk was assassinated by Israel because he started to turn on Israel.
Okay.
I wouldn't say that Charlie turned on Israel, but he was starting to question the official narrative. And he was starting to question why we can, pass judgment or question every other government and every other religion out there, but we're not allowed to question Judaism and Israel. Because he was starting to see these genocides and stuff for what they truly are.
Yeah, and
I'm not.
So I didn't watch. I mean, of course everybody has seen him come across your feed, but I hadn't heard him talking about any of that. But I do know he was a person in pursuit of truth. I mean, you start to follow the money, and you start to see where the money is flowing into, and that can often tell a different narrative than what we're being, what's being shoved down our throats in legacy media.
Now, it's one of those things. You'll never hear me say that Israel killed Charlie Kirk. Simply because I've lived real life conspiracy theories, and I'm of the mindset that great accusations require great evidence.
Yeah.
And I watched interviews with Charlie Kirk where he was interviewing Ben Shapiro, and he asked that same question to Ben Shapiro directly. Why are we not allowed to question Israel? Right? So it was clear that he was starting to come around and see truth.
Gotcha.
But he would have had to done something major other than just asking that question to really lead to catching a bullet from Israel,
right?
In my opinion. However, the Luciferians had everything to gain from it. Now, does that group of Luciferians encompass people like Netanyahu? Maybe. But I don't have the evidence to back that theory up, so I'm not going to tell you that it's a fact, because I don't know. And truth is, anyone out there on the internet, you don't know. You don't have that evidence. Unless you are in possession of a personal video recording of Netanyahu in a back room somewhere with one of his generals or a group of Luciferians, and you have it on video, him stating that they were going to kill Charlie Kirk, I'm sorry, you have nothing to base your theory on. But what we do have is the progression of political agendas that have been taking place ever since Charlie Kirk was martyred.
Okay.
We have the rising up of leftist violence in droves, one thing after another, rarely even a day or two apart at this point. We have political Zionists, such as Trump and Bondi and all of them, pushing for the elimination of free speech in the U.S. And I believe that this will eventually lead into AI, and I'm talking military AI. I'm not talking about the other branches that people are familiar with, like ChatGPT and all that, even though there are big problems with those. But it's going to be used to monitor and control people.
Yeah.
You think it's bad in the UK? If Trump goes forward with what their plans are and eventually backs Israel to the extent of pushing for the Noahide laws to be in effect here in America, then Christians and conservatives en masse will be targeted by their own governments.
Crazy.
And AI will be there to back it up and exploit it.
Yeah. Explain, for those that don't know about the Noahide laws, what exactly is that?
The Noahide laws are a set of laws that Israel in particular once introduced here in America, as well as all over the world, in order to do that, they have to come to a position of power, which will give them complete dominance, right? Basically, if you are not of Jewish descendancy or bloodline, that you will not be able to practice any of the biblical feasts. You will be excluded from any of the Jewish traditions whatsoever, and you will not be allowed to make any kind of criticisms against the Jews, Judaism, or Israel at all, which means if you're a Christian and you are reading the Bible, which clearly states that it was the Pharisee, the Jewish leaders of the day, that crucified him, that will be labeled as hate speech.
Yeah.
And you will be prosecuted for it.
Interesting.
Tell me that doesn't tie in with the Luciferians.
Yeah. And the whole book of Revelation. Huh.
Yeah.
Wow. So what are we to do, Jason, you and me, Christians like you and me? I mean, I know we could pray, but what else can we do?
We can definitely pray, and people really need to be taking spiritual warfare very seriously at this point. You need to be praying over your property daily for protection and for God to act as a bulwark, a standard against the enemy that could potentially target you and your family.
Yeah.
You should also be working on your spiritual discernment. You know, if your instincts and the Holy Spirit says something isn't right about somebody, you better listen, because he's telling you that for a reason. And that is of the utmost importance. You can't control everyone that you're going to meet or come into contact with, but you can control whether or not they have access to you or your family.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, you got to stop treating this like it's just another day in America, because it's not anymore.
Yeah.
We are facing a time now where your spiritual discernment skills need to be top tier. And I would also recommend you brushing up on your tradecraft skills and understanding psychological manipulation to a very extreme degree. You need to understand when someone's trying to manipulate you. And if they are, you need to shut that person down and remove them.
Yeah.
Period. Because that's the ploy that coven members and even chosen ones will use in order to gain access to Christian families that are being targeted.
Yeah.
And above all, it's high time that Christians stopped with being pacifists. Knock it off.
Huh.
Pacifism is a false teaching. There's a reason why Jesus told his disciples, if you have 2 cloaks, you should sell one and buy a sword. That sword was not for buttering bread. It was for defense and protection, because he knew after he left what they would face.
Right.
Some of them were called to be martyrs. I have no problem with that. Everybody in the body of Christ is called to something different. There are those that God has called to martyrdom. I completely appreciate that. I understand it. But there are also those who God has called to be warriors. And it's high time people started acting like it. There was a day in this country where criminals were afraid to do things in view of the public, because they knew there was a good chance that a man just walking by would step up and put an end to it. It's high time we got back to being that way.
No, that's totally true, man. You know, even my mom tells a story, a very interesting story, and you won't hear these stories much anymore, but she grew up in Philly, and she was out for a midnight stroll with her dad. Maybe not midnight, but, you know, wintertime, gets dark early. And she was out for a walk with her dad and little brother. And they walked by a candy shop, and they were going to go in to get a piece of candy. And then all of a sudden, my mom, you know, she's a little kid, and her brother and the dad noticed that the candy shop was getting robbed. So my grandfather goes into that candy shop, grabs this dude by the throat, drags him out of, I mean, you're talking, these infantry military, fought in World War
Yeah.
II. He grabs him by the neck, gets him out on the street, ties his shoelace and hog ties him somehow, and calls the cops to come pick him up. And then all while goes back into the store and gets his scoop of ice cream and candy for the kids. Like, no joke. Like,
Yeah.
there were people that would defend their neighborhoods like that and would step up to evil. And nowadays we see evil and we feel like it's an inconvenience. Oh no, I can't get involved because I got to go watch my Stranger Things at Netflix and go hide in my room, and that's real. That is real.
Well, it's one of those things. It's just like the old expression says, all it takes for evil to prevail is for good men to do nothing.
Yeah. Yes.
That's all that it takes. It's time to stop doing nothing. Because
Yeah.
I'm going to tell a truth right now that most people don't want to hear. They don't want to accept it. I've lost subscribers just for saying this, but I don't care because it's the truth. If you leave a restaurant and you're walking back to your car and you pass an alley and you hear a woman screaming and you look over there and you see a man beating that woman to death and you turn and you walk away, her blood isn't only on the criminal's hands, it's on yours.
Yeah, it is.
For not stepping forward.
Yeah.
And that's a fact. God's going to hold you accountable for not acting the same way that criminal is going to be held accountable.
Yeah.
And that's the truth, because in Scripture, we are commanded to protect the widows, the weak, and the innocent. It's high time people start doing it.
Yeah, I mean, it is the men that are coming out of like generation I don't want to say Generation Z. I can't even think of my own generation. What generation are we? We're not Generation X, but we're the millennials. There we go. How old are you? You're a millennial, right?
Technically, I guess. I don't.
What year are you born? What?
I was born in 85.
Okay, yeah, you're a millennial. So millennials, I mean, depending on what you Google, but I'm right there. Born, I was born the first year of the millennials, which was 80. Some people have the millennial generation starting at 84. Doesn't really matter. I'm an Xer / millennial, but we're producing the ideologies just alone. We're producing some, pussy ass guys. You know what I mean? And I say that, in the context, like you're a little tiny pussycat, like you can't do nothing. And like when you, like your limbic system, right? So everybody has a limbic system, and that limbic system will override your consciousness in a time of extreme adrenaline and extreme situations, right? And so there's two options that you have there, and you don't choose them. It's just based on how you were grown up and how you were taught, and your ideology will govern this at the end of the day, but it's fight or flight, right? And your limbic system, when it sees a girl being raped or sees a crime happening, you will either run away, or you will run to, or you will run away. Okay, it's fight or flight.
There's a lot of people that think that is genetic, but that can be overcome by sheer will as well. Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things that, someone that's never been in a fight, right? That fear takes over when confrontation happens, they get shaky or whatnot, and they think they have no choice in the matter. No, you have a choice in the matter. You should tell yourself daily that if X happens, I will react and I will stop the threat.
Yeah, and and
you have to convince yourself to the point of believing it wholeheartedly, and then on top of believing it, you will do it.
Yeah, because you'll hate yourself. You will hate yourself if you don't. And you know, there were times, Jason, where I wondered about myself. Uh, I don't know. As a young Christian, and I mean not young in age, but young in the faith. I prayed a lot of prayers and God would answer them all the time. And like I asked that question, one time, like, what kind of a man am I? Like, what would I do? And I was, coming from a place of being really broken at the time and being in a manipulative situation, and I was being told, I was being told by somebody in my life that I was a bad person. And I asked God, what type of person am I? That same very day, I got to find out what type of person I was. And I cruised up in my little car to the gym before I was, I worked as a bartender at the time, and I would work out before I would go to work. So I cruised up and I was sitting there, and at the time, yeah, I smoked cigarettes and I was smoking before I was going to work out. Of course, what you do. And I'm sitting there smoking a cigarette, and I see this lady, and she's running. She's running, and she's like, stop, stop. This guy's got my purse. Without thinking about it, I turn my engine on. I back up. I go. I'm chasing this dude in my car, right? To go. I'm going to go. I'm like, in my mind is just thinking I'm going to get that lady's purse back. Thank God, as soon as I turned a corner, there just happened to be a parole officer eating a burrito on the sidewalk there. And he's like, what the? Pulls out his gun, has the dude on the ground already as I turned the corner, right? Because I was going to, I would have had to chase him into a field. And so anyway, because I saw the incident, I had to pull my car over and give a statement and whatnot. And it was crazy. Like this lady, she actually ran an organization for teenagers who commit suicide, and she was going through cancer, and she was praying a prayer that was similar to that because she was going through so much. And in this instance, she saw three different people right at the same time come to her aid as she needed it. And it was like God was doing something in probably all of our lives at that specific injunction in time. And I challenge and I dare you that if you don't know what type of person you are when it comes down to this, pray to God that he will show you that what type of person you are. And if you're not the type of person that you think that you should be, then do what Jason said and get yourself mentally ready for it, because I'll tell you, man, there's something that just takes over me. Like it scares me sometimes, because like I go blank and I don't know what I'm up. You know what I'm saying? It's like like that limbic system just takes over. And, thank God I haven't, hit anybody or shot anybody, but there's like nothing in me. Like once that adrenaline goes, like I will get in your face, man. Like I will straight up get in your face and challenge you, with all that you have. And, oh, Lord, we need more warriors out there. We need more people. We need more men that will stand up for justice, not stand up for stupid stuff and get mad over stupid stuff, but get mad over righteous things and stand up for those. Like
We need righteous indignation, righteous anger,
yeah,
righteous justified defensive actions.
yes. You're not a tough guy if you're beating up children and women. You're not a tough guy. You're a freaking
Not at all.
Yeah, you're a pussy. But you go after you bring justice in the name of the Lord to those that justice is being stolen from them because they can't fight for themselves.
Exactly. It's just like that Ukrainian woman that was killed in North Carolina, right?
Oh my
You've seen
gosh.
the video.
Yeah.
There were multiple people on that train that could have acted.
Right.
Even if not, even if the women couldn't have stopped him, they could have at least provided medical assistance to her to prevent her from bleeding out.
Right.
Could have been done. They did nothing. I guarantee you, had I been on that train and saw him, he would no longer be breathing and she might still be alive.
Yeah. Well, can you, Jason, just personal question, but if a person is in your vicinity that has a demon, can you feel that demon on
Yeah,
them? Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's one of
Mo-
those things, if you are acting in discernment and you sense that demonic presence, pray against it.
yeah.
You might stop an attack just with prayer. And that is always the best way.
Yeah.
But in a violent situation where evil is being enacted upon another, my concern is not the criminal's spiritual being or well being.
Right.
My concern is to protect his victim.
Right. The innocent.
And whether he goes to the ICU or I choke him out, or if God forbid he stops breathing, he is responsible for his own spiritual well-being and the course of actions that his life has taken, not me.
Yeah.
My responsibility is to protect the person he's trying to harm.
Yeah. So, Jason, this has been a good talk, a little frustrating because we kept getting cut off by technology. But what do you, in closing, what do you see coming? And again, we talked about it a little bit already. We don't need to beat the dead horse. But what do you see coming, and what is maybe like one practical step that a Christian family can take during these weird times,
Well, I've learned over the years not to proclaim that something's going to happen that I'm uncertain of, right? Now, the Lord has shown me in many dreams and visions what's going to take place in America. Civil War, almost simultaneously with World War III, and the rise of the beast. However, God did not give me an exact time frame. So what I am viewing and watching now, personally, I believe that we are encroaching upon that time span of Civil War. But I'm not going to guarantee or say for certain, hey, this is what's happening.
right?
But I will say that if we go by the examples we are given in history and how history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes,
Huh.
that we are on a precipice right now and America stands on the edge of a knife.
Yeah.
Just one misstep and this can go into a full-blown civil war. But what we can do is making sure that our politicians, and whether it's going to work or not, I can't guarantee it. But we need to make sure that they know that we are not going to tolerate the restrictions of our rights to free speech. We are not going to tolerate restrictions to our gun rights. And we are not going to tolerate any sort of persecution of Christians like we saw under Biden and Obama via the FBI.
Right.
We will not tolerate it. Apart from that, you should be reading the word daily. You should be praying constantly. You should be engaging in spiritual warfare and praying over your family and your home and your finances. But you should also be taking care of preparations to defend your family and even protect yourself or others if need be. That means if you have a firearm, you should train with it regularly because shooting is a perishable skill. And you don't need to go to the range and just shoot a paper target that stands still. No, you need to be doing active training, almost like what you would see in competition shooting. That is a very good type of training to do, right? You should find a martial art that you like. Boxing, kickboxing, Krav Maga, Kali, something that is going to be valuable in protecting yourself, your family, and again, others if it's necessary. And I also recommend making sure that you have things stored up just in case things do go bad. Because a civil war here, a 2.0 civil war, will not look at all like the first one. You're not going to have two armies meeting on a battlefield and shooting each other. No, it'll be guerrilla tactics. It'll be very similar to what you've seen in other countries like Somalia or, some of the, southernmost areas of America, South America, and even areas like Iraq and Afghanistan, Egypt, when they had their civil wars and things of that nature. It's going to be guerrilla-based warfare. So you might be in Nashville or Kentucky or something like that in a little town, and your groceries are pretty regular, but let's say something happens here in Memphis. The bridges are taken out, or something happens in the waterways of the Mississippi. Well, those supplies that usually come up I-40 and head up your way may be restricted or cut off. Do you have enough food and water to get your family through until supplies might reemerge? And what if they don't reemerge? Do you have the ability to take care of your family? These are things that should be considered.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. All right, Jason, I'm going to let you go, man, but that was a good talk. Thanks for coming on again, and we'll get this posted ASAP.
I appreciate it, brother.
All right, man.